Hey everybody, it's your old pal Steve Moore here, owner of Run More, this fabulous brick and mortar running shop located in Westminster, Maryland, and we'd love for you to think of us as your local online store as well. We have a very big new updated shoe today. It's the Hoka Arahi 8 that came out in summer of 2025. There's actually a lot of big changes in this shoe, so before we get too far into the good, the bad, the ugly on the new Hoka Arahi 8, do me a favor and like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It's a fun, free, easy way for you to support our shop, and make sure you stick around to the end. We'll give you a promo code on how you can save 15 bucks on the new Hoka Arahi. So let's get into some of the nitty-gritty specs on the new Hoka Arahi 8. It now costs $150, and on the men's side it is 9.8 ounces, and on the women's it's 7.7 ounces. The stack height on the men's is 39 down to 31, and on the women's it's 37 down to 29, so we do have an 8mm drop shoe now. The upper is a double jacquard mesh, and its midsole is a dual density compression EVA with a stabilizing H-frame. So this is a mid-cushion stability shoe, and honestly, like, we carry a ton of different stuff here at the shop, with stuff we'd consider walking shoes, racing shoes, everyday trainers, Like, I think most people coming in the door for us, although we are a run shop, a lot of people come in needing some support and some guidance, and while I know it might not be the #1 model for a lot of Hoka people out there, we've always done really well with the Arahi. We have a lot of people coming in that say, I've seen the Hoka stuff out there, I want to give it a try, but maybe I have some foot issues, maybe I'm coming off of an injury, plantar fasciitis, pronation controls, So we've always had good luck with it. I think one of the other reasons why is that for some people, Hoka shoes just look so grandiose. They're just a big, beefy shoe. And like I've always said, this is a nice sort of entry-level position for people, price point-wise, size-wise, width-wise, stability-wise, all of those things. It kind of gets people into the shoe and lets them start running, experiencing the fun and majesty that is a Hoka shoe. The last iteration of the Hoka Arahi 7 probably wasn't as good as we would have liked, and I know from a brand perspective, they weren't as thrilled with it either. There was just some things that I think mainly I found it to be narrow for a lot of people. Actually, it was fine with my foot, but like that was the continual problem we had, is like, oh, why did they narrow it up? Oh, why doesn't it fit like the way it used to be? Because everything else on the shoe had pretty much stayed consistent. It still had that J frame of support, which we'll get into in a moment here. It still had that same sort of mid-cushion, more of like a sleek peel. In fact, that's what they called it, is sleek and stable. But it became too narrow, and we carried it in wides, and like it was one of those shoes, like we started to see that like we were selling almost as many wide Arahis as we were standard. So I think they kind of had to go back to the drawing board, and then along the way they made a bunch of changes to it. So this is still a nice stable shoe, but really they actually made it more stable than it used to be. So we were talking about that J frame of stability, and if like you're an old school Hoka head like I am, you remember they used to actually have a different color. You can still really see it faintly here, but it used to have a different level of stability and density from like a shape of a J all the way around the heel to prevent you from overpronating and prevent you kind of going too far to the outside. So just a nice way to kind of keep you in the middle. You'd sink and you'd be able to keep yourself nice and stable from inside-outside support. Last year on the new version of the Hoka Gaviota 5, they introduced a new stability they're calling the H-frame. So it's much more sort of like an H. So it gave you more support all the way through the forefoot, all the way through the heel. It almost looks like a figure 8, quite frankly, but it's a much more stable way of holding your foot in, and it wasn't just so lost up here. Much more support, much better job as far as it went. So we went from a J frame to an H frame. So now we're going back to our Arahi, the Arahi 8 here. So now we've changed the stability, and really we've made it more stable. And like we actually did some videos recently that were used to be more stable that we've actually found they've gone the other way. So now here's a shoe that actually has gotten a little bit more stable, but along the way, it didn't get any clunkier. And I think that's always the challenging part of making sure that a shoe is stable, but still feels fun. And like we have people that will come in that might be just like needing all the support in the world, and you're like, you know, I got injuries, I got this, I got that, and they put on a stable shoe and they're like, yeah, but it's not that comfortable. And it's like, yeah, I get that. And like, so I think they did a really good job of still making the shoe feel comfortable while adding stability to it. And then of course, the width has changed. And I will say, like, we were doing a bunch of stuff this morning. I've probably put on like a baker's dozen different kinds of shoes today, and my bunion has been bugging the crap out of me. it actually felt the best in the Arahi. Even like aesthetically looking at some of those shoes that I was popping on my feet, I would have thought that this is still that sleek feel, but it definitely fits more forgiving, especially where I needed it on my BFF, my big fat foot. It felt much better than even the previous one, which I really didn't have too many issues with on the last width, but a nice job on making sure this is a little bit wider. And then in continuation with some of the other changes we've seen from Hoka along the way, they raised the heel drop. So like, you know, for the longest time, most of the everyday Hoka stuff was like 4 or 5 millimeter drop from heel to toe, about 4 to 5 millimeters. That was their thing. And so now they raised it up to 8, which keeps in line with the change that we recently saw on the Clifton 8. So like, you know, you can actually kind of see what they're doing here is they're really trying to keep these things a little more closer of like, I have a mid-cushion neutral boy, I have a mid-cushion stability guide. They both have similar midsoles. They both have an 8 millimeter drop. And then if you wanted something that's a more cushy, fantastic. We have the same kind of thing. We have the Bond D and we have the Gaviota, and they're both big cushion, high stability, more soft, but like that same kind of feel. So it's easier to kind of figure out where you are on the equation and like stepping stones from getting from like an everyday trainer to a max cushion, or I want more cushion, I want less. It's much easier to figure out where you are on that chain. So I think they did a good job in trying to like keep those two mid cushion shoes at a different drop than the high cushion shoes, while still making it kind of fun, accessible, and not, even though it's wider, it's not as big as like the Gaviota. Like seriously, for us, we love the Gaviota here. Like, but it's crazy how much wider these shoes are, but you're still getting plenty of width on the new Arahi 8 comparatively. And we stock it in a wide. I know Hoka obviously makes this in a wide, so you have a lot of options there if you need it, even more than what this shoe is. But if you are somebody who was in the Hoka Arahi 7 and you like, maybe you went to the wide, you might not need it in version 8 if you just got it because you needed extra width compared to where you were in like the 5 and the 6. So keep that in mind. I will say like two things that I wish that they would have changed on this shoe. And honestly, it kind of goes back to my opinion on the Clifton as well, is like, I wish they would have made it a little more of a fun midsole. And I know like this is probably coming from like, you know, this is probably niche of the niche, but like, I wish they had a faster shoe that still had stability. Like this to me is still gonna be, you know, it's an everyday trainer. It's not necessarily supposed to be super rockety fast, but it'd be nice that they had one that wasn't like a, you know, we're gonna pull this for a lot of walkers, totally fine. People need promotion control, great. But if you're somebody who like, I wanna still run fast, I wanna go do a little workouty stuff, it'd be nice to just have something that's had a little bit of stability and more of a fun midsole to it than just like the same compressed EVA midsole that we've been seeing. Like we added $10, but we haven't really done a whole lot as far as like technological advancements on the midsole that we're seeing in the Arahi and the Clifton. That's just my 2 cents. Also, I don't love all the colors of it. Like, I don't know, like when we saw this, I got to see this in 2024, and I think collectively we're like, I mean, there's some that are okay, and I know like aesthetics don't mean everything, obviously. I mean, I know I'm a fashion person, as you can tell, but like, I just know what our customers are looking for when they come in. Like, I think some of the models, I think we're not gonna have as easy a time for a lot of people because there's just too much going on with a lot of these shoes. Like, it looks like the shoe kind of melted like a candle down the side of it, in my opinion. And again, just my opinion. So for the most part, I'm really excited about it. I think, you know, we've had this shoe now for about, I don't know, maybe a fortnight, and we've already seen a bunch of them going out the door. And like, we were pretty stagnant on Arahi 7 for a while there, so I think people were waiting for the 8. People were not that thrilled with the 7, but so far, like out of the gate, things seem to be great on the Arahi 8. Look at that. So thank you so much for watching. And if you wanted to pick up a new Arahi 8, if you enter promo code WATCHMORE down below, WATCHMOORE, just one word, you'll save 10%. We'll ship it out for free, and you'll have yourself a new pair within a few days. Thank you so much. And if you're in the greater Westminster, Maryland area, stop on by and say hello. Happy running, and as always, we'll see you around town. Thanks so much for watching. Click the videos on the screen to learn more about some related content.